General Jacob, as a military commander who fought and won a war for the country, and you've been posted in the Northeast too, do you think that we have enough forces today in the Northeast? Because, there have been reports that we don't have enough firepower, we don't have enough mobility in the Northeast, and we're not really war ready as such when it comes to the Northeast region of the country. Could I have your view about it?
We, unfortunately, are still a World War II oriented army. We lack mobility. We do not have sufficient forces in the Northeast. I was Army Commander and Chief of Staff there, so I know the situation. We have enough forces to hold just about that. But we need many more. We need a strike capacity as well, a local strike capacity. I don't mean that to invade Tibet, no, but in battle you need reserves and you need a strike capacity. We don't have that. We have raised 2 more divisions. I was instrumental in pushing the defense minister for that. Now there was a proposal to have a strike corps of 3 more divisions and an armored brigade. You can call it any name, strike corps, reserves, anything, but we need reserves. I don't want to call it a strike corps. We need reserves. We need those 3 divisions. Unfortunately, little progress has gone. And unless we have that, we do not have the adequate reserves. You cannot fight a war without reserves.
But why do you think this has happened? Is it because our army has been too busy fighting counterinsurgency battles and we're not really prepared for external aggression?
No, I think what has happened, there's a lack of strategic appreciation. The government has these figures. It's like the same in 1962. We were totally taken aback. We do not have reserves. And unless you have reserves, you cannot fight a war.
No, I understand that. But do you feel that this prolonged use of the army for fighting counterinsurgency, it is detrimental to the army? Do you agree with that point of view?
No, I would put it this way. One of the tasks of the army is counterinsurgency. Mrs. Gandhi understood that. She ordered the army to move and break the Naxals. The army moved in and broke the Naxals in West Bengal.
Not formally, right? You didn't have formal orders for that, right?
No, we had orders. We had orders to do it direct from General Manekshaw on behalf of Mrs. Gandhi, but there was to be no publicity and no records kept.
But this is prolonged use of the army for counterinsurgency matters. I mean, in the Northeast, in Kashmir, 20 years, and in the Northeast, it's been longer than 20 years. Using this for counterinsurgency matters, this is not the role that the army was envisaged to play, but they are doing that. You don't think that that's okay? I mean, that's the role that army is supposed to play. Is that what it's supposed to do?
You see, I was involved in operations in the Northeast. We got a Ceylon Accord signed. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's now spread to Assam in a much greater way. And the civil cannot deal with it. And therefore, the army has to be involved. And it has to be one of the tasks. But the order of battle of the army should cater for this, to provide the troops. The Rashtriya Rifles is not enough. You need more.
What about the Western sector? We've talked about the Eastern sector. What about the Western sector? Do you think that our strategic planning is right as far as the Western sector is concerned? Do we have the firepower, the mobility that you talk about, the strategy that is there on our Western sector? Is that right, what is going on right now?
Well, I don't want to comment on that. I have my own views. I am a believer in mobility and movement. Unfortunately, we are bogged down in a Maginot strategy. There was a Sergeant Maginot, you know, he was defense minister. He built this Maginot line. We have built a similar kind of fortification. They can only hold they're not entirely reliable. You need reserves, you need movement. And this Maginot strategy must be moved from the army.
After 26/11, what went wrong in the 26/11, post-26/11 phase? Because you have written about it saying that we had a kind of a tardy response on our side as far as security matters are concerned. Could you elaborate on that, please?
I think we should have taken an example from the Homeland
Security, yes.
We have not. And I don't think the Home Ministry is organized or has the ability to do this. There are too many intelligence agencies and there's no great coordination. They'll deny that, but I know I've dealt with them. So there are too many agencies. We need a central agency for intelligence. We need a homeland.
When it comes to internal security, you've been to America, you've been to Israel, you've seen the internal security, the homeland security in these countries. Do you think that India can replicate those systems, or is it that we should have a separate kind of homeland security of our own to deal with the dynamics that we have out here, which is completely different from that in America, and in Israel?
No, I'm afraid we're very much behind time. We should use them as examples, American homeland and Israel, whoever you want to. They should make their own strategy, but there should be a pragmatic strategy, something that has teeth and bite. We don't have teeth and we don't have bite in this.
And we've never had it, isn't it?
No teeth and what I call bite.
When it comes to Kargil, you've gone on record to say that you did speak to Prime Minister Vajpayee and said that what went wrong as far as strategy is concerned and as far as tactics are concerned with Kargil.
No, what I said to him was different. I said we don't have the firepower, we can't hit Skardu, we need a long-range weapon, which we did, and I told him we're running out of ammunition. I didn't criticize what was happening on the ground.
Which means right from 1962 onwards, that's always been the case with us. We just didn't have enough ammo. We didn't have it in 1962, we didn't have it in Kargil, we never seemed to have enough ammo.
We don't have the logistics. Look at the infrastructure in the east and what the Chinese are doing. They're building railway lines everywhere. What are we doing? Are we matching what the Chinese are doing? Are we keeping up with them?
So the impression that one gets is that we don't have enough ammunition, we don't have enough manpower, we don't have logistics, we don't have mobility right now in the army. Is that the conclusion that one is to draw?
I don't want any specific one. I say we do not have the proper infrastructure and the logistics for a future war. I refuse in 1971 to move in unless we had the logistics. It took 6 months to build the logistics. First campaign. It will take much longer now. We need to build up the infrastructure, and unless we have the mobility unfortunately is not being given enough stress. Unfortunately, General Montgomery removed it from the principles of war and substituted with flexibility. It was wrong. Mobility is a key factor in war. We lack that mobility. Unless we have mobility to transfer and the reserves and the firepower, we do not have the firepower. Our guns are presently they are lower caliber. In Burma in World War II, we found the 25-pounder was no use. What we needed was a heavy gun, and we even took a gun from World War I, a 7.2 firing a 200-pound shell to fire Japanese bankers. So we need firepower, we need a heavy shell. We don't have that. We need 155 millimeters.
Because we get stuck in the politics of purchase when it comes to purchasing guns, isn't it? After Bofors, we really haven't been able to buy anything after that.
I have some good news that the DRDO have made a gun now, a 155 45 caliber, which I'm told is very good, and hopefully it should be available to us in the next few years. So, but I don't know what else is happening. Quite frankly, I'm out of touch with events.
In all the years that you've been in the army, 38 years, you worked with titans, you worked with General Thimayya, General Kumaramangalam, you worked with Cariappa, you worked with General Kaul. These were legends in their own times. There must have been clash of egos. How did you sort that out when there were the clash of egos, and how did you move on? There was no media scrutiny in those years when there was trouble between you people.
So every time there's clash of egos now. What I want to say, I want to pay tribute to Thimayya. He was the best general we've ever produced. He's the only general who I knew quite well. I worked with him for a short time in Burma, who commanded a brigade in World War II. The next great man was Kumaramangalam. He took part in the Berakim battle, was captured and escaped from Colditz prison. He was an outstanding general too. These are the two I have the highest regard for.
as I said, there was no media in those days. So when you did have these clashes, I mean, nobody got to know of it. Today, even the minor of things, people get to know about it, they write about it, and that kind of brings the morale of the forces down, it brings the morale of the country down. How did you sort it out in your time?
I didn't go to the press. I was asked many times when I was in the 71 war, and I never spoke.
Even when you were a colonel, you submitted your resignation once.
I gave my resignation, yes.
Why did you do that?
I had problems with General Call. He removed me from the top of the promotion list to the bottom because I didn't give evidence against General Manekshaw in the inquiry, anti-national inquiry that was being held against him. I refused to give in, and Call was supervising that thing, so I refused. So he had me removed from the top of the promotion list to the bottom. They told me lies that it was not done anyway. It's a long story, it's over. It didn't affect in the end.
Hot-headed?
I've never been hot-headed, so that's not true.
No?
I've been reasonably sober all the time. I hope so.
In all these years that you were in the army, did you at any point of time feel that you could have taken up a career which was not in the army? Any other option that you would have had?
No.
No?
During the war of 1945, I went for a promotion selection board. I was asked to go in Bangalore. My regiment had been pulled out for rest from Burma. So I went there, and I was told to go. I went. So I 4 days at the British selection board, and 2-3 weeks, my name was announced on the radio as the first Indian to get a regular commission. I joined as an emergency officer. Then we had, my regiment was written to. They were asking me whether I agreed to transfer to the ICS, Indian Civil Service, God's Own. I said no, thank you. Then there was a lot of pressure on me for my own relatives to join.
And your brothers also joined the services, isn't it?
Yeah, all of us joined.
All three of you joined the services. In those days, joining the services was a career of choice. Today, there are so many options. Young men don't want to really join the services as the first choice, So the quality of officers has gone down. Jawans, of course, there are people joining as Jawans, but as officers, the quality of officers has gone down, hasn't it?
I don't want to talk on this. I joined the war. I'll tell you why I joined. I joined to fight the Nazis. I saw the atrocities, my whole aim, and I volunteered for the Middle East, and I was sent there. But I joined to fight the Nazis. That was all, no other reason. I just want to fight.
Yeah.
That's all.
And as a Jew in India, you never faced any kind of anti-Semitism, isn't it?
I've never, from any Indian, faced anti-Semitism. I have faced anti-Semitism in school, British school, and in one or two instances during World War II from British officers. I was the only Indian officer in my regiment, and I had problems. I superseded British officers. I had some problems.
In your personal life, you were wedded to the army. Never thought of starting a family of your own?
Yeah, it was a disaster. First one failed. My mother and all that arranged, and the girl wanted to get married immediately. I was being posted to Tanda, 3 years.
Kashmir.
So how can I get married? And the girl didn't want to wait, so that failed too. Second one was more serious, but
broke your heart?
Huh?
Broke your heart?
Yeah, it's finished. Anyway, that's over. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I've written about it. I don't want to say anymore. I still think of the person all the time.
You do?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. She's always in my mind.
Was it lonely?
Yeah, it was, but I made up for it in a small way.
And then army was your life. It was your family.
No, I wasn't. My family, I love the army. The army is my way of life. The army is a way of life. It's a career. It's a way of life, and it's a way of life which I love. I wouldn't have changed it for anything.
You've written that your life was tempestuous. Why was that the case?
It was tempestuous. I was going to call my book A Tempestuous Journey. The publisher didn't like it.
You looked at death in the eye several times. Did it scare you? Would you still do what you did?
I don't think it's scary. I face mobs, communal mobs in Ladakh and also in Jammu. I had a shootout on the Basanta River with the Pakistan Rangers. They hit the man on my right and left and the walking stick. Anyway, I managed to drive them off. And it is okay. I have had it in the Bangladesh war. I went in many times to extricate them and other things. And also in Dhaka. But I was wounded twice in World War II. It's okay.
If you were to talk about the army's role in Kashmir, there's a lot of talk these days that the army should be withdrawn from Kashmir. At least the number of forces should be reduced in Kashmir. Do you think that that's the right way to go about bringing about peace in Kashmir?
Absolutely inadvisable. Unless we are maintaining strength. Do you want to hand over Kashmir to the terrorists and the insurgents? You cannot move. There are so many terrorists waiting on the other side of the border, just waiting for a chance to get in. You cannot move the army from Kashmir. I spent 10 years in Kashmir.
You worked with many prime ministers. Who do you think are the people who had nerves of steel?
I do not claim to be familiar with prime ministers. At my level, I don't mix with prime ministers.
Oh, you're being
I'm a soldier.
Modest.
But I did have a lot of occasion to interact with Mrs. Gandhi. I'm a great fan of Mrs. Gandhi. She was a great person. And she used to continuously ask me, General, why are the Jews leaving India? I had no answer. She used to talk to me quite a bit. She's a wonderful person. I have the highest regard. She had guts, and she was the best prime minister this country has ever had. And I don't think we'll ever get someone of her caliber ever again.
Politically, you've been close to the BJP. If you were to pick one prime ministerial candidate from the lot, who would you?
I'm not in touch with the BJP, so I don't know what is happening with them. I'm sure they have a great number of people, but I don't know any of them.
Do you want to keep a distance from all politicians?
I know I've had my share of governance in Goa and Punjab. I think that's enough, and it's a time for me to go. The time is coming very soon, and I've done my duty to the country, whether it was in uniform or in governance. Goa, I did the best thing I did was to save the 2 forests and make them sanctuaries. Punjab, I did quite a lot for the poor, and the best tribute I had from Punjab was when 6 months after I left, on the walls of the PGI and others was scrawled, now that General Jacob has left, who will look after the poor? That's the best tribute I can never think.
Any regrets, General?
My private life, there were some regrets, I can't think. As I told you, things didn't work out. And otherwise, I have no regrets. I had my share of ups and downs. They were both there. It was all not plain sailing. It was a very tempestuous journey. I don't know how I managed to survive.
Anything that you'd like to have done differently in life?
I don't know. There are many things I'd like to do differently in governance, in Punjab and other places, but in the army there's very little option for much lateral movement.
What would be your message to young officers who are joining the army today and Jawans who are joining the army today?
There's no profession like a soldier's profession. It is the noblest profession in the world. Now, cannot do anything better than serve one's country. I appeal to all the young people to join the army, to become officers, and also Jawans. We have no dearth of Jawans. There's so many wanting to join. There are not enough staff. Officers, we don't have enough. I appeal to them, this educated, technical and all, to join not only the army, the 3 services. We need you. Like Kitchener used to say, as in the posters, we country wants you. So we need you. We are 12 or 11,000 officers short. There is Air Force and Navy too. We need officers.
Do you feel that retired officers can play a major role in encouraging people to join the services?
What I want to tell you, I've seen the young officer today. He's far better trained, far fitter, and far better than I ever was. We have wonderful young officers. I've never known such guts they have. Our young officers are really great guys. I'm far better trained, far better. I learnt my soldiering 5 years in World War II on the battlefield. And I have not trained. These guys are well trained. They're excellent. They're far more proficient than I ever was.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. General Jacob, as a military commander who fought and won a war for the country, and you've been posted in the Northeast too, do you think that we have enough forces today in the Northeast? Because, there have been reports that we don't have enough firepower, we don't have enough mobility in the Northeast, and we're not really war ready as such when it comes to the Northeast region of the country. Could I have your view about it?
We, unfortunately, are still a World War II oriented army. We lack mobility, a strategic appreciation. The government has these figures. It's like the same in 1962. We were totally taken aback. We do not have reserves. And unless you have reserves, you cannot fight a war.
No, I understand that. But do you feel that this prolonged use of the army for fighting counter-insurgency, it is detrimental to the army? Do you agree with that point of view?
No, I would put it this way. One of the tasks of the army is counter-insurgency. Mrs. Gandhi understood that. She ordered the army to move and break the Nazi. We do not have sufficient forces in the Northeast. I was Army Commander and Chief of Staff there, so I know the situation. We have enough forces to hold just about that. But we need many more. We need a strike capacity as well, a local strike capacity. I don't mean that to invade Tibet, no, but in battle you need reserves and you need a strike capacity. We don't have that. We have raised 2 more divisions. I was instrumental in pushing the defense minister for that. So that army moved in and broke the Naxals in West Bengal.
Not formally, right? You didn't have formal orders for that, right?
No, we had orders. We had orders to do it direct from General Manekshaw on behalf of Mrs. Gandhi, but there was to be no publicity and no records kept.
But this is prolonged use of the army for counter-insurgency matters. I mean, in the Northeast, in Kashmir, 20 years, and in the Northeast, it's been longer than 20 years. Using this for counter-insurgency matters, this is not the role that the army was envisaged to play, but they are doing that. You don't think that that's...
Now, there was a proposal to have a strike corps of 3 more divisions and an armored brigade. You can call it any name, strike corps, reserves, anything, but we need reserves. I don't want to call it a strike corps. We need reserves. We need those 3 divisions. Unfortunately, little progress has gone. And unless we have that, we do not have the adequate reserves. You cannot fight a war without reserves.
But why do you think this has happened? Is it because our army has been too busy fighting counter-insurgency battles and we're not really prepared for external aggression?
No, I think what has happened, there's a lack